now available in paperback and e-readers. Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess featuring a bonus pin-up and the other 2 books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere today. There was another tragic mass shooting here in America. And in this incident, which took place at the Stop and Shop in West Hempstead, 31-year-old Gabriel DeWitt Wilson is alleged to have taken out a firearm and shot and killed a manager and wounded 2 others. Now, the police are looking at this as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the behaviors of Gabriel DeWitt Wilson and his past, I see yet another beta male who fits the pattern and profile I talk about regarding beta males in my book, The Man Crisis. And it's clear to me that your Gabriel DeWitt Wilson was a man in crisis for many years, even before he came to Long Island to work at that Stop and Shop. Now, according to some reports, your Gabriel DeWitt Wilson had a promising career as a football player until he tragically wound up getting shot in the head. Now, the other reports state that your Gabriel DeWitt Wilson also, after getting shot in the head, wound up with a complete change of mind that led to him winding up with a history of mental illness and a violent past. And this could possibly be the reason why your Gabriel DeWitt Wilson went from being a man on the way to becoming a man in crisis. And this man who was in crisis, he, after getting shot in the head in Baltimore, wound up becoming a ticking time bomb. And it was not a matter of if he would go off, but when and how much harm he would do to others. Because before he came to New York, he had been arrested several times in Baltimore, Maryland for a series of crimes, and I guess he was coming to Long Island, New York to get a fresh start. And as he came to New York to get that fresh start, sadly, it was his whole past that was starting to come back to him, because he had not really been able to deal with his mental health issues, and because he wasn't able to deal with his mental health issues after being shot in the head, those issues started to resurface once again. And that's what it looks like as related to alleged reports, because according to several employees at this Stop and Shop, they were having issues with your Gabriel DeWitt Wilson over the course of the 2 years he worked there, going to wrangle the carts in the parking lot. Now, your Gabriel DeWitt Wilson, he was working this job where he was going out here working and taking the carts and putting them back where they were supposed to be, but he was having issues with people who he was working with, according to some of the reports I have read, and they were issues as related to sexual harassment, because some women alleged that your Gabriel DeWitt Wilson made advances on them and even bought them gifts in an effort to try to make his advances. And again, that's textbook beta male behavior, because the beta male does not really understand that there are boundaries that you need to respect, and that there are boundaries that are lines you don't cross in the workplace. And in this era of Me Too, most men, they know to avoid dealing with women at work because they don't want to deal with sexual harassment charges that could cost them their job. But this male, again, because he was a man in crisis and he had mental health issues, he didn't understand those issues. So I really believe that he possibly could have been fired, basically, for those advances or the beef and other issues they allege he had with other co-workers. Unfortunately, I guess the manager sympathized with this man in crisis, seeing that he was struggling to try to get his life together. And I guess that's one of the reasons why they gave him a pass, in spite of all of the erratic behaviors they allege he was participating in. Now, I guess things were coming to a head as related to his extremely erratic behavior, because according to reports, Wilson decided to request a transfer from the West Hempstead supermarket where he was working to a Hempstead location. Now, according to reports, this male, again, after having this discussion with the manager, it looked like things went all right, but then all of a sudden, he decided to go in to the manager's office and then went in there and pulled out a weapon and shot him and then shot two other people. But this man in crisis, I believe, should have been dealt with by management sooner rather than later, because according to reports, again, people said he was a troubled employee who had already made unwanted advances to women who worked at the supermarket. He had disputes with coworkers and was threatening them, and he had been brought to the manager's office several times. So this man was a ticking time bomb for over the course of 2 years, and he had been probably simmering and boiling in anger, and he also had numerous episodes. So this was a man in crisis for the time that he was there. And from the reports that said 2 years, he was working 2 years at this market, but he worked at two others. And the whole thing is, he was a ticking time bomb that was going, it was just a matter of time before he went off. And sadly, he went off and he wound up taking the life of his manager, and he wound up doing harm to two other people. And when I look at the case of your Gabriel DeWitt Wilson, it is another case of a man in crisis, and sadly, this was a man who desperately needed help, and he desperately needed to be taken to a mental health facility and be supervised, because clearly, again, this was a man who clearly was a ticking time bomb. He was a deeply troubled individual, and he needed somebody there to put him in some place like a group home or a foster or a home like that, so that they could look out for him, because he was out here on his own, and he was clearly a man in crisis. He was clearly a danger to others and to himself. And sadly, because he committed this murder of this manager, he'll now be in a place where he'll be supervised, ironically, and he'll be supervised by your corrections facility, because he's probably going to go to jail for 25 years to life. But that's sadly the state of our mental health system, that the only way many of these men in crisis who were struggling when they were young, they don't get any help until they do harm to others. I mean, because we in America, we don't really do anything to deal with people who are mentally ill until they wind up simmering and boiling and exploding in rage and then doing harm to others. Their behavior can be erratic for extended periods of time, but no one will do anything to help these individuals until they do harm to others. And that's the sad part about our American mental health system, is it doesn't really help out people when they need it. This man in crisis could have been helped way back when he was in Baltimore after he got shot in the head, but nobody really gave him that help he needed. They thought he could go out here and do it on his own, but it's clear to me that this man definitely, he needed to be in a group home, and he needed to be cared for by people in the state, because he could not care for himself. And when he was out here by himself, he was going out here getting into things with people, and he needed supervision. So when I look at this male, he was a man in crisis, and he was one that desperately needed help. And he was, again, a textbook beta male, as I talked about in the man crisis, and he was one that definitely and desperately needed an intervention. And if he had gotten that intervention, possibly the manager who worked at that Stop and Shop would still be alive today. Now, if you want to learn more about beta males, like the one I talk about in this video, and the pattern of behavior they participate in, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. In that book, I detail why so many men out here are having issues in navigating a course in life and making things work in life. And this book has helped a lot of men be able to figure out how to get their lives in order and how to overcome this man crisis, and it could possibly help you out. So you can get The Man Crisis on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find it on Smashwords, the iBook Store, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, My Sister, My Frenemy. It's a sister act as the goddess next door and the devilish diva team up in this action-packed Isis series adventure. Get Isis, My Sister, My Frenemy in paperback and e-readers everywhere.